Alexander Pichushkin was born on 9th April 1974 in Moscow and spent a significant part of his adolescence in a center for mental health. In 1992, he formed a close bond with Mikhail Odichuk, becoming his best friend. Their friendship developed to the point where they conceived together the idea of committing murder. However, the plan does not materialize because Mikhail decides at the last moment to withdraw. Fearing that the friend might divulge their intentions, Alexander makes the drastic decision to eliminate him to ensure his silence. 2 years after being discharged from the mental health center where he had been hospitalized, Alexander finds employment as a storekeeper in a large supermarket. During this time, he leads a seemingly quiet and ordinary life, and no one suspects his involvement in the murder of his former schoolmate. In 2002, however, he returned to his obscene murderous activity, this time with a project he described as much broader. He began to frequent Biza Park in Bitsevsky, located on the outskirts of Moscow, where he began to commit a series of murders. His victims, mostly elderly, are attracted by a generous offer of vodka, while others, more vulnerable, are lured by the despair of Alexander for the recent death of his dog and want to share his pain with them. After gaining their complete confidence, in a moment of distraction, Pichushkin hits them with the same bottle from which they were drinking, or sometimes with a hammer, and disposes of their bodies by throwing them into the sewers of the park. After each murder, taken by euphoria, he starts to run at an exaggerated speed through the park. In the future, he will then explain this attitude to the investigators with these words: "I had an exceptional energy. If I had hit a pine tree at that moment, I would have knocked it down." After completing his works, he returns home and, as part of a macabre ritual, marks a piece on his personal chessboard, inserting inside the cap of the bottle used in the last act of violence. His intent is clear. He wants to fill all 64 pieces of the board, thus killing 64 people and creating a sort of deadly chessboard, which will earn him the nickname of serial killer of the board. Like many serial killers, Alexander is extremely self-centered and is deliberately captured before completing his macabre project. In February 2006, when a transgender person was arrested on charges of being the Biza Park maniac because a hammer was found in his bag, the news quickly made the headlines. Alexander, outraged that his work can be attributed to that individual, decides to come up with a plan to be captured. He invites Marina Moskaliova, his colleague, to dinner at a restaurant and makes sure that she told her son about their meeting and left him Alexander's phone number for safety. He then leads her into the park and brutally kills her with hammer blows, leaving the body in sight. The next day, the police receive the report of Marina's son, worried about his mother's absence. The search begins immediately, and shortly after, the body is discovered in the park. The boy informs the investigators that his mother had gone out the night before with a man. The police immediately go to Alexander's house, but on arrival, he threatens to commit suicide. To avoid a tragedy, some agents descend along the facade of the building with a rope and capture him alive. Pichushkin is taken to the station, where he is subjected to a long and tiring interrogation, broadcast live on the Russian network NTV in July. After several questions, Pichushkin blurts out and admits it. The police found only 48 bodies, but Alexander told them that he had killed 62 people, of whom 3 remained alive. The other poor victims were never found. The trial begins. On June 16, 2006, the chess serial killer is declared mentally competent. His lawyer, Pavel Pichushkin, proposes a 25-year sentence to counter the prosecution's request for life imprisonment, which cannot apply for the death penalty since a moratorium on executions is in place in Russia. The verdict comes on 29 October 2007, sentenced to life imprisonment, although the victims' relatives continue to fight for the death penalty. With the sentence of life imprisonment, a dark chapter in the story of Alexander Pichushkin closes, but his name will remain forever linked to the fear and horror he has sown.